Well, hello and good afternoon to everybody. Said I was going to do the T72 tank video earlier than I did, but circumstances proved otherwise, and our little war started to creep up on us. So here I am. Let me just move my computer up a bit so I could position myself better. And it was completed. The box. And no, I do not throw these boxes away after I build them. I'm thinking if I move, before I move, I'll get rid of all of them, but I'll keep all of these. The instruction booklet. Let me see, I can open it up. And the actual tank itself. A T-72 tank in East German markings with an East German soldier with an AK-47. So, what about this tank? Well, it's armed with a 125 millimeter smoothbore gun, no rifle barreling. It has a W46-6 V12 engine, 770 to 840 horsepower. I'm going to go with 840 horsepower in this one because that's the horsepower rating of the current T-72s that are out in the battlefield. Oh, what else do we know about it? It carries one 12.7 millimeter machine gun and one 7.62. Probably coaxially mounted. I have not seen any up on a mounting on the top of it. The maximum speed of this is 37 miles an hour. Okay. Maximum range 430 miles, 435 miles. It has a crew of 3. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of put it forward. You can kind of see where they sit. Down there would be the driver. Oh boy, won't anything fall off. Top is a commander where the hatch is, and next to the other hatch is the gunner. It has an autoloader. Yes, that autoloader that you see if you watch military videos, making the turret come off, going off like a jack in the box. I'll get into a little explanation of that in a bit. It has a layered composite armor mixed with metals with spacing. Not quite as effective as what's on the Abrams because the Abrams is different and the Challenger, but well enough armor anyway. It was designed for mass production and stressing reliability, ruggedness, and affordability, and successful in the Cold War and other conflicts has proven to be a good vehicle. It's a low-profile tank. So if you look at it, if you saw my Abrams that I built, and I'm going to do a video of this versus the Abrams, probably tomorrow or tonight, it looks small. You'll see when I compare the two of them. And it is small. You should go on YouTube and look up the chieftain. He was in the U.S. Army tank commander, and he rates and looks at all these tanks. He'll sit in them and explains them in a little bit more detail than probably I do. And you get to see him try to fit in them. And he's 6'1", and watching him in this episode of the T-72 where he sat inside of it, it's called Inside the Commander's Hatch, the chieftain. Look like he was it was a point of suffering because there's not a lot of room in here. So it is a very, I wouldn't say ergonomic, but it uses space well. Oh, I'm looking at my notes here. His smoke grenade launcher is also up on top next to the gun. A searchlight. What else can I tell about it here? It has had problems in the battlefield in Ukraine, and like I said, you've seen the turrets blowing off of it, and not so much now. And I was reading commentary from Ukrainian officers and soldiers. The problem is the autoloader is a carousel autoloader. It's underneath the turret. So when they go to fire this gun, a shell will come up from the bottom, and both the commander and the gunner are sitting separated, and they have this like safety thing between them so they don't get caught up in the autoloader and the actual gun. What this one Ukrainian officer said is when a hit comes through the turret, it ignites the loose ammo that's not in the autoloader. I don't know if the autoloader has wet stowage like the American tanks did and the British tanks. But supposedly the Ukrainians don't have loose rounds laying around. That's how they had more ammo, the loose rounds. Whatever's in the autoloader system, that's what it carries. And then I guess they're not having that problem, at least on the Ukrainian side. I don't know about the Russian side, because Russia also uses the T72. I think they're almost out of the T90, their modern tank. And speaking of the T90, I have a model coming of that I will put together. We'll do a video on the T90 and keep you up to date on what's the latest in Russian armor, basically armor you might see on the battlefield. But the Ukrainians use this tank along with the Abrams and the Challenger. And they're pretty proficient because the old Soviet tank that they're using from the 70s. And going back to my notes here, it was the autoloader will hold 24 rounds. And then what would happen is the Russian soldiers would have other rounds laying about so they can like top it off with more. It was those rounds that were not stored in the autoloader system that would get ignited when something would come through the turret. It would be a suicide drone or a hit from another tank. And that's what ignited the ammunition, which caused the carousel to go up, the Jack in the Box effect. But it's not so much now, from what I was reading. It was designed to be used by a conscript army. The reason they're not used that well, I mean, like in the Soviet Union, you have different people from different places trying to learn everything in Russian. So they had to simplify the instructions so they could use it in a simplified fashion. This particular tank is an East German tank, and I saw a video with a gentleman who was an East German tank commander. He trained people on this tank. They never had problems in East Germany. Why? Because they're all speaking German. The same like within Ukraine. Ukraine does these things pretty well because you have Ukrainian soldiers. They're speaking Ukrainian. You don't have Azerbaijanis, Georgians, whoever when it was the Soviet Union. So the Ukrainians, because they've used this vehicle as a Soviet vehicle, are more efficient in its usage and in turn can make it a very usable tank for their purposes, which they have. They've been not been taken over yet. I mean, they've gone through a lot of beating and a lot of population loss and stuff, but they're still fighting. The same could be said for the Russians, but I think the Russians did not place a heavy emphasis on being efficient in the battlefield. The conscript army, they kind of throw people in there. They're like people that pay to go, and I don't know how well they do with this. And the same thing goes to say, if you're not speaking the same language, you're not trained the same way, you're not going to be as efficient. They got North Koreans on the Russian side. I'm sure they couldn't use these tanks well under Russian command because I'm sure they all speak Korean. But that's my point. I mean, you have to have a commonality with your tank crew in order for that tank as a tank to function, and in turn the other tanks that are in the tank unit to function also. So you can all function equally together. So that's what you need. Anything else about this baby here? It was used by USSR, East Germany, Finland, India, Iran, Iraq, Poland, Czechoslovakia, some other Eastern Bloc countries, Russia and Ukraine. Czechoslovakia and Poland are big in this because they produce versions of this tank, which are actually better than the Russian Soviet versions. And there's not really total commonality between them. So the Czech and Polish versions of this tank are decent tank. In fact, I think the Polish army now, because they use Abrams tanks and being a part of NATO, the tanks that they had, like these in storage, they turned them over to the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians were able to use them efficiently and had not many issues. The reasons why I think Ukrainians can use this tank well, this is a pretty light tank. I think the total tonnage of this tank is, let me see here, I think 41 tons. And the Abrams weighs like 65 tons. So if you're going, you have bridges that you're not too sure of and kind of mushy kind of ground, this baby's going to fly over it. The Abrams is going to kind of sink because of its weight. And if it comes to utilizing bridges and stuff, this baby can go across, and the Abrams not going to. And I've actually seen an Abrams. I've seen one in Fort Knox, Kentucky. We can look inside of it. And at this museum by me, Catini, I was able to climb on it, look at it, and it's kind of a hefty kind of a tank. I mean, and when I do the video of the Abrams in this tank, you'll see. But this tank and the Abrams are basically the main two opponents of each other. So what else can I tell you about this tank? Oh, the armor is layered composite armor, so it'd be layered steel, and I don't know what else they would use as a binding thing between them. that kind of gives it a bit of ruggedness and reliability in a kind of a modern form. So I mean, it's utilizing a different kind of an armor than would have been used in the past. It can use this gun can shoot like rockets, missiles, because it's a smooth bore. It's not a rifled bore. I don't know if they do. Um, and they were able to keep this tank relevant, meaning they could update it, put modern sensors in it, and it does have sensors on it. If you look close, I mean, you can see up there. And it's still, I mean, a relevant tank. The armor is decent, and like I said, if you get a crew that know what they're doing with this tank and utilize its speed, its lightweight, and you'd have infantry supporting the tank. If this is out fighting now out in Ukraine, like in Ukraine and Russia, there's infantry supporting. So it's a totally different thing about somebody just throwing something or using a random drone to knock one of these things out. Um, I would say this tank probably, I mean, be one of the more familiar tanks. There were a lot of them produced. I don't know if I wrote the actual number, but there was like 10,000 or something of these produced. The problem is the Russians use these like toys, and they're losing them in Ukraine. I mean, their numbers dwindle. But you have the other versions that other countries have and stuff. And like I said, this is not a bad tank and not one to look down upon. It's if it's utilized properly by a well trained crew, and you don't have the issue of language, which kind of restricts what the crew could do. If you have them doing rudimentary basic tasks, this could be a good tank. The East German tank trainer that I saw in the video said that. I mean, reports of Ukraine, the Ukrainians have no problems with this. Oh, let's see, anything else is showing this tank. It does have a diesel engine. Let me see if I can get it to show it to you. There we go. It's kind of tricky to open it up. I'm going to open this up so you can see the engine. What they did in this tank, the older tanks had the engines mounted in a normal fashion, longitudinally. This baby here has a transverse mounted engine. So it is a very modern vehicle. It's not some old based on World War II. I mean, I'm sure some of the mechanics of this tank, as far as mechanical things with engines and stuff, could be going back to that. Same with Western, European, or American engines. But this baby here, I mean, it's a very modern tank. It's not some thing to snuff at, and with a properly trained crew, it can bring a lot of hurt on you. You like give a look at the bottom and the back. So if we were to put boots on the ground in Iraq, you would probably see this tank here battling the Abrams. Now, if you know anything about the Gulf War, that was the same matchup there, and we slaughtered these tanks. Well, they were Iraqis, and I don't know how well trained. The Iranians are a different story. They're not like the Iraqis, and I'm sure if we fought them, you're going to have to fight them well. They're not going to be a pushover like when we fought the Iraqis. So that's it in a nutshell with this tank. You have any other questions or stuff, you can hit me up in comments, and hopefully you like this video. It's a little bit more loose than my normal ones, and it's not a bad model. One of Cobi's better tanks. If you're going to go and buy like a modern model and keep like a collection use for whatever reason, I would suggest this, the T72, the Challenger, which I have a Challenger, and the Abrams. My next video, probably tomorrow sometime early, will be this tank versus the Abrams. Strengths, weaknesses, who would come up on top, because it would be relevant. If we do boots on the ground, you're going to see this guy out there fighting and trying to do its job. So that's about it for this. I will say goodbye to everybody for now so I can go look at some notes that I'm going to use to put together the next video. And I have a MiG-29 fighter plane, which I'm building also. I'm going to do a video on that, also in East German markings, because if we're going to fight them, Iraqis or whoever, most of those countries have MiG-29s or Su-27s or Su-35s. So I will be doing that also. I don't know when that video will come out soon, but I got to build the plane first. I'll try to do that quick. But the one with the Abrams versus the T-72 will be out tomorrow. So hopefully you enjoyed this one. Any questions? Feel free. Want me to do any other kind of videos relating to modern warfare and stuff, I can do that also. But I will do more, but the stuff is going to be related to current and more modern stuff. Hopefully, the stuff in Iran gets done quick and not a lot of people get hurt, because it's kind of a crazy situation. You have a theocratic government where they're trying to make people live like they're in the Middle Ages, and now we went and did what we did, and maybe these people can pick up the pieces and live the kind of lives that they want, and everybody's fine and everything's good. Anyway, that was it for the Cobi T72 tank and my little talk about it. I will see you with the next video tomorrow. Have a good one.